The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay. At 7:03 p.m., I call this meeting of the Historic Landmark Board to order. If we could do the roll call.
Gargi Dat Gupta.
Here.
Linda Grabio.
Here.
Karen Hardy.
Here.
Sarah Lorak.
Here.
Mary Oswell.
Here.
Tennille Wood.
Here.
Anna Lesky Young.
Here.
And our alternate, Alana Mace.
Here.
Okay. Did everybody get a chance to look at their minutes?
And just let me read to the record that we have a quorum. Sorry. Go.
Okay. I actually have a change. It's not a huge thing, but under new business from the last meeting, we were talking about new signage from the city-owned historic sites. And as you wrote it, it says that I asked if, as new signs are created, a note could be added as to whether or not the property is city-owned. And I think it was the other way around, that I was hoping that when new signs on city-owned buildings were there, we could make a notation that these properties were historically landmarked.
Thank you for that clarification. And I would apologize because I typed those. I actually do have assistance with that, and thank goodness for that. They never see minutes if you were waiting for me to do them. But I will certainly make that a clarification. Thank you, Mary, for pointing that out.
Okay. Is there anybody else who has? If there are no other, I entertain a motion to accept the minutes. Somebody?
I move to accept the minutes.
Second.
Is this a voice vote, Rich?
We could do it as a vote, as a voice, yes.
Is it all in favor of with the changes? Raise your hand, wave. Are there any oppositions? Okay, so that looks like it passed unanimously.
Yes.
The next is new business, and before everybody got here, we made a little bit of an amendment to the agenda, which was that we probably should do business by allowing our two new members to introduce themselves and say a little bit about, connection with Westminster and why they felt they wanted to be on the board. So,
So we
Sarah,
will need a motion for that since it was published ahead of time, and just for absolute transparency, can somebody move and second and do a quick audio?
I motion that we do introductions.
Second.
Second.
The amended agenda, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any oppositions? Okay. So, Sarah, since you're on the far left of my screen, you get to go first.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Sarah. I have lived in Westminster since 2017. My husband and I live on Pierce Street, right across from Mandalay Middle School. I have a background in architecture technology. So I work for a company right now that creates software for architecture, engineering, and construction firms. Yeah. So I'm senior manager for that company right now, and I'm just interested in. I was interested in joining because I'm a huge history buff. I love architecture, obviously. I'm really excited to be here. So thanks.
Well, great. Good to have you, Alana.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
Sarah,
Amanda.
you're my neighbor. Sarah, you're my neighbor. I live on 95th by Betty Adams.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, just a little south of you.
Cool.
So, Alana.
Hi, I'm Alana. I've been a Westminster resident since 2014, and I'm originally from Southern Colorado, where I grew up on a trading post, which was built in 1870, which my parents still live in. So, which was historically designated by the state of Colorado. It's it's a wonderful place, and I was born in the upstairs room. So, goes way into Colorado history. I have an anthropology degree from CU. And I'm excited to kind of start using it. I help run a specialty lumber company in Denver. So that's what I do as a day job. And I have a 6-year-old. So that's the other thing I do as a day job.
Well, excellent. I'm glad to have you both here and look forward to seeing you all in person someday. All of you, not just our new folks. So, I'm assuming then we move on to new business 8.2 now. I know we were discussing the historic marker program, and I'm wondering, did we make any assessments of what we had? I thought we were going to look into what we knew we had in storage or thought we had in storage of the original metal discs that were placed in the sidewalk. For the for the new folks, they look like that, and they are placed in. These were placed in mostly on the sidewalk in various places around the town, and there were supposed to be 24 of them originally. Many have been placed, a few have not, and we're not sure if we still have all of the ones that haven't been placed. So, Rich?
That's a very good summary. And I hope to shed a little more light on this. I have not had time to actually go to all of the sites where the installations supposedly are, and that's something that I will have to do in the near future. But I was able to get into City Hall and do some archaeology of my own. And I did uncover the signs that have not been installed, and I believe there are 5 of them. And if there are ones that we still are missing, that's not clear to me quite yet. But I'm going to share with you on my screen here the 5 that I was able to locate. And this one is the Princeton of the West, obviously Westminster University. We have Changing Views, the Gregory Hill. We have the Savory Mushroom Farm,
Which is 23.
We have Lucky Day Ranch. and the Harris Depot. Sorry, these are not the greatest photos, but I was taking them propped against a chair in my office. So there you have.
I know that we originally had the list that I think Linda provided. If it's possible, I think be nice if Sarah and Alana could get a copy of that too, or at least be directed to where they could get one, so they would have the full 24 marker list for their records. It looks like, at least on the list I'm looking at, the only one that says not yet located that I see on my list is Thirsty Business, number 22, which I can't tell from the description where it was supposed to go. Linda, do you remember where the plaque about
Just
water?
Yeah, just offhand, I think it's up by the Harris house where the little ditch crosses over Bradburn. It's on the bridge, I think.
Okay. Because I was going to say, Rich, if you would like me to, I will be happy to go out and try to visit all of these and take a picture of them. I mean, it's a pretty COVID safe thing for me to do, so I'm not worried about that. And that would at least give us an idea to make sure that other than that one that I don't have an address for, we can make sure the others are all still in place where they're supposed to be.
I would love that. I would love that. Yes.
Well, and as I said, for me, that would be fine.
Along Bradburn and the intersection there by the Valenti house on the southeast side, I think there's a misplaced marker. So just check, there's like 2 or 3 markers on that crossroads section there, intersection. And when I was doing the Bradburn for the 100th year of Bradburn Boulevard, I noticed one seemed to be misplaced, but
and that's Bradburn. Do you know what the cross street of that one?
It could be like 78. It's where the Valenti house is on the southwest corner, but the misplaced sign I think is on the southeast. It's right by oh come on, the lady that owns the our Little Bits shop.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, that'll
Okay,
give me, like I said, I will certainly, before we end up meeting again, I will try to get out and get pictures of all of them and where they are, at least roughly. Some of these have pretty good location details, and even some of the ones that are placed don't. So,
and I think if I had to surmise why these maybe weren't placed at the time, it's probably because they're not. Maybe the specific location wasn't, or they're not meant to go in the sidewalk. They would require probably a concrete foot off to the side, and which we can certainly do. And I have talked to our engineering department with transportation, and they're aware that we have some markers we want to get placed. Now, whether or not ultimately they are the ones that will be installing them, clearly they would if it were on sidewalks. That's part of their annual program when they do repairs and other things. They would put those in for us. But for these, I'm still going to have to dig a little bit and see if they're willing to do them, or if not, maybe I can get Parks Crews or somebody else to just pour some simple concrete footers and get those mounted. Well, I may have to find some mounting. I only found one set of the brass screws to hold, and the others were not with the boxes and the packaging material. So we'll have to do a little bit of sourcing for those, but that's pretty routine.
And, you know, the
I have a question.
Sorry, I was going to say the Lucky Day Ranch one could theoretically go into the new development, because it was a big chunk. There was a chunk of it that was that property that's now being developed. So, you know, the place for that may not yet exist with respect to that one. So,
and I believe the Pillar of Fire property does have a sidewalk, but that's just directly south of the main entrance. The sidewalk, I think, curves to the outer road. So, but that's not, you know, that's still privately owned.
Yeah.
So in that case, I'm not sure who's responsible.
We'll have to do it in the cover of darkness.
Surreptitiously.
That would be fun. I'm all for that.
Gargi, I'm sorry. I think you wanted to say something. So Gargi, please.
I had a question. The pictures that you took showed those signs, the markers to be pretty heavy. Am I mistaken? Because if they are that heavy, one of the options would be a lot of the sidewalks and a lot of the areas may not be structured, and the sidewalk concrete may not be able to take that kind of weight, and you might see some problems. They may have been built even to put up against like in a vertical position, and I'm not sure when they were commissioned whether that was the intent. I was just looking at them and kind of thinking that. Just
I don't have an exact weight. I can tell you that yes,
heavy, right?
If you saw me dragging the closet, you'd know they are. Maybe Linda might. They were originally envisioned for sidewalks, or if it was a combination that they had multiple applications.
All I read in the original Historic Landmark Board, because it came before that, what was it, 13, 16 years ago, that it was designated for sidewalk. I don't know if I gave you that information. Took a while to dig and find, but it's in the mix from over a decade ago.
I think they were envisioned for sidewalk placement. Now, whether or not the areas of sidewalk might not be structurally sound or not, that's another issue, but we'll solve that bridge when we get ready to install them. But I'm excited that we can move forward and get them out.
Are there other things that I have one other thing that I went through my list of properties respective to the discussion of having city signs reflect land status for city-owned properties. And most of the city-owned properties have some sign in front of them. 3 of them reflect that it's open space. The Savory Mushroom Farm, the Allison Farm, Semper Allison Farm, the Bowles House. I don't think the first City Hall has a separate sign on that property that you could see from the road. I'm talking about a big city sign, but that's if as a city entity, if possible, I think it'd be nice if that's a way we could get landmark status out there in the public's view on the things that the city owns. And I know those signs don't get changed a lot, but it would be nice if the next time one of those signs needs to be replaced or repainted or something, we had the verbiage and the folks within the city who do that would know that it's something that we would like to see. And I don't know, Rich will know better which department and who we have to deal with, and you know how many years ahead we have to have the verbiage right. But
it typically would be our open space crews, I would think. And we do have a sign fabrication shop in Parks. I mean, they work closely together. So I don't think that's an issue. I think that one of the discussions we might have, though, this comes back to that whole desire to have consistent branding design standards, so that it's clear when the time comes between the first and the second that they are following standards and they are resembling each other, so we don't wind up with a hodgepodge of random signs, none of which relate to each other in any discernible way. So that's and we have a graphic designer who's exceptionally talented at the City of Westminster, and she is an expert at brand monitoring, modifications, specs, all that. So that's something I'm happy to work with this board to develop. Kind of a template.
Yeah, well, and it's somebody who I don't know. I walk a lot, so within Westminster I run into, and there is a very distinct way that Westminster has chosen to mark its parks and its open spaces and things like that. And I just think it'd be nice if we could I think our profile, the Historic Landmark Board, and what we've done is kind of a little bit low profile, partly because there have been times when the board has been more about making sure what we've done with these properties is noticeable to the public. And so, yeah, I think that would be wonderful. And yes, I think we have to decide what exact verbiage we want on them, but especially with the ones the city, I think it would be nice. And I also think it'd be nice that maybe that would encourage more people to say, oh, I wonder what historic landmarking a property does mean. So, Linda.
One misunderstanding the community has is accessibility to these places. For instance, the Semper Allison Farm. Most people don't know that you're free to go on that. It's city owned. It's part of their community. And it'd be nice once we get this all laid out to have a brochure that we can give out, maybe at City Hall, saying all these historic landmark board sites that are available for them just to walk on, where the private ones aren't necessarily. You know, people don't want people trampling all over their front yard, but we have a lot that people are welcome to. They own them, in other words. They take ownership and take care of them, you know, trash pickup and all that.
And there are ways that we can accomplish greater awareness for all of these properties with campaigns, and I'm happy to lead the charge on that. We're actually in the midst of hiring, filling a vacancy for a digital media specialist, and once that person's on board, I can see this being a great introductory project. Have them draft some evergreen posts, and when we have opportune times, focus on some of these properties and share the history and show images. I think that would be very nice.
There was somebody else, Tennille.
With that, now that we have those other markers that you found, Rich, maybe this is the time to take those and create that as the template so that we have that as a design standard. And then anytime that we have the new approvals or new properties, we've got that template that we could use. And I'm just thinking about the Presbyterian Church, for example, like that, if that's something that we wanted to approach them, and because that is a private property, but say, you know, since you've recently been designated a landmark, would you be interested in adding this? But then we'd have that design standard that this is what it looks like. And then transition, what does that design standard look like for the signs, for the city signs, when those are changed in the future?
I just wanted to add one thought based on what Linda and everyone else is speaking about. I know, Mary, you talked about trying to put this verbiage in place. Might be good to sort of add the fact that it's a city-owned property or private property, because you know, you see the sign, if it's a city-owned property, that is open to the taxpayer, the public, and that's a good thing to know right at the sign.
Yeah, and my original intention was to make sure that we had this for those city-owned properties, and then talk to people who had private property about whether, and I think to Neil's point about the church, I think the church would be very interested that they were known, because they have such a long history with Westminster, and the college and all of that. But private property, I understand a lot of people who have landmarked historic homes. That's a different animal. I think it's important that we make clear that there are private properties that are landmarked. But I think it's easiest, and going along with being ready with the artwork and the signage and for the properties that the city owns, makes it easier to then say, oh, if you would like a sign, or if you'd like, we can do those kind of things, or we can work with you to make sure that maybe you end up paying the cost. I know that both in San Diego and Chula Vista, which is where I came from, if you are historically landmarked in those cities, it is your opportunity to have a sign. You end up paying for it, but it's a sign in the same setup as the city that you have been landmarked in. And with private residents, it's usually placed out at the sidewalk or maybe not in the sidewalk, but out at the outside, and then under it, it says, you know, this is a private property. So it's very clear that, but that, as I said, I think it'd be nice if we had the city side done first. I think that makes the other side a little bit easier to jump onto. Oh, Karen.
If we put together a brochure, it would be useful to help educate visitors to say that it's okay to be on the property if it's city owned, and if it's privately owned, then you would need to seek permission from the owner.
Yeah, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Linda, our walking tours that the Historical Society have done make it clear. It's a tour for you to see the exteriors of the buildings. Does not involve going inside them, which they wanted to make very clear, and yet they are still interesting pieces of Westminster history, whether you can see the inside of them per se. You can see
It also
inside.
includes on the property itself, basically. You know, I know Pillar of Fires and the church are kind of community oriented anyway. They're for the community. So some of those, we don't mind up at the castle. By the way, for the new ladies, I work at Pillar of Fire as the teacher, but I also have been the tour guide for the castle. So I know the architecture, Sarah, very well. I was asked to do a PowerPoint on it, so I had to learn about it. But anyway, so some people walking around, getting up close, taking pictures, all that. So there's some that are in the in-between area too.
So were there any other discussion of the markers that folks had from last time, or is there, and from Rich, is there anything else you need from us from that, going that direction, do you think?
Oh, I'd just like to make sure that we keep making that steady progress. And I'm really grateful that you volunteered to complete that audit by going to those other sites to make sure everything is in condition and where it should be. I think that's the next update I'm looking forward to, and getting additional plaques installed. In the meantime, I will work with my graphic designer to start thinking at least about and coming back with some proposals that we can then ask as a basis, as a starting point for that discussion.
Well, that sounds good. If that's okay, then we will move on to old business. Rich, it appears that there was no update for the list.
Super quick update, nothing. But I did provide that the same attached for the new members, so you can kind of read. That really is a chronology of all the work that has taken place on each of the historic chronological order and the dates. And we just keep adding to it. At some point, I imagine it might become unwieldy and we start to rethink that. But for the time being, that's what we've been doing. And I think it's a great resource for you to become familiar with the properties and what has taken place on them. We don't have anything outstanding currently. We're kind of in a holding pattern. It's just maintaining the properties and making sure if something happens like vandalism, which happens unfortunately from time to time, that we stay on top of it and get that repaired as quickly as possible.
Or if it needs a new roof.
Say it again.
If it needs a new roof.
Yeah, we just finished some new roofs over at Semper. It took us a while. We had weather delays, and yeah, it was a challenge, but we got them done, and we're in good shape.
All right. Other business, conferences, education, other updates.
I have something exciting I wanted to share with everybody, and it's kind of a good segue between old business and new business, or the other business, I should say. But for those of you, I think most of you know, but maybe not our newest members. So I head up cultural affairs for the city, and my team does all the special events in the city of Westminster, which is really fun in pre-COVID and really horrible post-COVID. But we've been really innovative, keeping that social recovery moving forward with socially distanced activities, and we were pretty darn successful at it. So 2 years ago, we did a piece called The Last Apple Tree, celebrating the Allison Farm and Semper Farm, and referencing, of course, the historic state champion apple tree that's at that property. It was an original musical, and it was just a lovely, lovely production. And this past year, we partnered with that same company to do The Rough, which was a socially distanced, immersive theater production on a golf course, telling the history of golf. Well, I'm really excited. In 2021, we're bringing them back to do another custom piece for Schoenberg Farms. And as you know, that's the property that we would love to see put into really good use, but there are so many issues with many issues. It has no plumbing, no electric. That's a slight problem. No parking. So we're, this is a way to showcase not only our history, but we're hoping to bring to it. And when you talk about awareness and things that we can do, this is an example. So we are actually commissioning this piece that's going to celebrate. It's called The Land of Milk and Honey. And it refers to the family and how it was originally a dairy, and how the original Mr. Schoenberg lost family members, of course, to the tuberculosis pandemic. And here we are in another, pandemic or public health crisis, timely. And so we are moving away from one-off events, and we're trying to do what we're calling attractions. So for the month of June, this will run 5 nights a week, twice a day, so we can get 10 performances a week over the course of the month. We're really excited about it. We're doing it in small groups, of course. Hopeful that conditions continue to improve, but we are taking every precaution and working closely with public health to make sure that we're staying safe and in compliance with all public health mandates, which of course we have to do. But it's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. I'm very excited for it. And what a great way to bring awareness to one of these underused properties. So very excited. I wanted to share that with you. We have not publicized this yet because it's still a ways off, but the wheels have been turning. So yay, how exciting. Oh, I see.
I'm excited about it too. And we can park on the west side of Schoenberg, can't we? On the grass? There's lots of room there.
You can. There is like a very rutted, scary parking lot. Every time I go in it, I'm not sure if I'm going to get out or need a tractor, but you can. Gets quite soft. Karen, yes.
I was wondering whether there was the possibility of using parking at what I know as the old Albertson Center, since it's that lot filled up.
I'm not sure which lot that is. Is it in that complex?
That's the northeast corner of 72nd and Sheridan.
Okay. Possibly. I mean, we're going to have to obviously park people there, but thankfully that they're small enough groups that we shouldn't run into any problems. We just want to make sure that we have safe, level parking. So I already dragged the markers out of the closet. Please don't make me push cars out of the mud. I can't.
That's why I suggested Albertson.
Go to Karen's apartment. She's not listening. We can go to Karen's apartment. You're right across from it.
That's all private parking. There's no room for visitors. They get ticketed and towed.
What I'm hearing is after show refreshments will be in Karen's backyard.
Yeah. What do you know where on the property? Is this going to be outside?
It will be both inside and outside. And we've taken the company through the properties and kind of picked areas that we thought were safe, one direction flow, so there's no risk of having people too close to each other. It's all very carefully controlled, and working with our fire marshal's office and all the necessary public health and safety to make sure that we're doing everything appropriately. Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but what an exciting challenge.
Well, a
I
chance to see.
attended the first year at Semper, and it's just an extraordinary experience. It's really a creative production, and you can't help but learn about the history of the property because the Catamount folks do such a great job with their research and all.
That sounds great. I look forward to it.
The only other thing I would share is that we had 3 members express interest that I'm aware of in attending the virtual conference, The Saving Places, which will be virtual this year. So that is coming up very, very shortly. That's all I had on my schedule, but would anybody, of course, anybody else is welcome to weigh in if they have any other items they'd like to share.
Sarah?
I just wanted to just share one thing. So I'm happy to help. I know you mentioned you have a designer, but if there's any sort of like marketing collateral or like content creation or writing or anything like that that you guys need help with, I'm happy to make myself available for that.
That's wonderful.
I like that. Absolutely. Yes. Fantastic. Thank you for offering. That's very kind, Sarah. Appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem.
I was wondering if it would be appropriate for us older members or old members, existing members, as opposed to our new folks, to introduce ourselves to Sarah and Alana.
Absolutely. What a great idea.
Okay, I guess I have to start, don't I? I've lived in Westminster since 2012. I came from San Diego, California. My background is in anthropology, museum work, writing local history. I've volunteered at the Westminster Historical Society as well. And I'm a local history is one of the things that I really appreciate and love doing. So that's part of why I'm here. So, Linda?
I've lived here since 1999 on the what used to be the Summer Farm, right by the Highline Canal. And I also have been teaching at the Bellevue Christian Schools on the Pillar of Fire site for 16 years, and I'm a tutor there. And then I'm the president of the Westminster Historical Society. It hasn't been doing much in the way of events because most of our members are my age and at risk for COVID, but we're still keeping in touch.
Tennille?
Hello. So I grew up in Westminster, and then I left various places between the late 90s, and I returned to live in Westminster in 2013. And I've been on the board. This is beginning my third year on the board. I'm an interior designer here in Denver, and history has always been my favorite part, the historical architecture. And I actually teach the history of design class for the interior design program at Arapahoe Community College.
Cool. I did not know that. Anna?
It's a new thing. I
Oh,
just
well,
started teaching it this semester.
So I've been in Westminster since 2014. I've lived in several, before that I was in Seattle, before that all over. I have my master's degree in museum studies and do some archiving work on the side, but I also work in the development department for Denver Children's Home, which is Colorado's oldest nonprofit and actually is housed in a historic building. Yeah, and I have an almost 2-year-old as of next week, and I guess that's a good indication of how long I've been on the board. So I've been on the board. It's been almost 2 years now.
Karen?
I've lived in Westminster since 1985, and I worked at the State Historic Preservation Office, which is in History, Colorado, for 25 years. as Intergovernmental Services Director, meaning I worked with all the federal and state agencies and helped them carry out their historic preservation responsibilities, and got to work with tribes and architects and archaeologists and all kinds of folks. It was a great background.
Gargi?
And I retired in 2002.
Oh, sorry. I mean to step on that. Gargi?
So I can't remember when I started on the board, but I have lived in Westminster since 1999. I lived in India before that. I am a licensed architect, worked in the architectural world forever. Actually, a lot of these historic properties, Schoenberg Farm and all of them, when I was working as a licensed architect in the private sector, I've worked on these projects. So now I work for the Colorado Department of Human Services, and I'm their manager of planning and design. I have been a speaker and presenter at the CPI Saving Places Conference when I was doing a lot of National Park Service work and historic preservation work with Vicki Bunsen, who's longer with us, but she was lead for Westminster historic preservation. So historic preservation and sustainability, these are the two main things that I really am passionate about within the built environment. So continue to do that. These days I build hospitals and youth service centers as part of Department of Human Services, but historic preservation stays all day.
Okay, Rich, I'm going to put you on the spot.
A rundown of who I am and what I do. I work as the Marketing and Cultural Affairs Administrator for the city. So in addition to serving as the staff liaison, and in a minute I want to introduce our council liaison, who's another great champion for this board, and she's with us, Councilor Smith, and we'll jump to her to have her say hello. I started working for the city 5 years ago in Parks, Recreation, and Libraries. I'm now working under the Office of Innovation and Communication under the City Manager's Office. And so my team does all the creative services for the city, not just special events, but we also do graphic design services, et cetera, for the city, not just Parks and Rec anymore. But we also handle public art, maintaining our collection, commissioning new pieces, and of course, it's the special events as conditions permit. And I could talk about special events all day. But let me say hello to Lindsay Smith and give her a chance to share some words with you.
Hey all. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm sorry it doesn't look like I have video capability, but I can see all of your lovely faces. So
I can, would you like to make your camera available? I can make that happen.
I don't know how to make it available. Usually it's
Let's
on.
see. How about now? Can you, I moved you over to the staff side. Can you, yeah. There you go.
Perfect. Hi, all. Thank you for allowing me to have that face-to-face. It's kind of nice to see you all and you to see me. So Sarah, nice to see you, and Alana, nice to see you, and thank you for joining our board. I've been with this board since I started on council in 2019, so a little over a year, and a great group of people. You're gonna have so much fun. And a little bit about me. I grew up in Westminster, grew up on the Big Dry Creek. My mom had a small business after the Big Dry Creek. It's called Big Dry Creek Quilts. So lots of history for me here. Currently, my day job is working for the Regional Transportation District, so I have a lot of background in transportation. But also with transportation comes our art program. I managed our public art program for several years, so I have some knowledge and background in public art, not historical. There are public art and how an artist derives their pieces. So of everything it feels like. So, but it's just nice to see. Thank you for your contribution to our community and taking time to serve and working for not only your community, but working for your council. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Lindsay. Good to see you.
Good to see you guys.
Okay, moving on to the remaining meeting schedule conference, I guess.
Yes, those are the remaining on the agenda. We will be meeting Wednesday, 28th, Wednesday, July 28th, and Wednesday, October 27th. I appreciate everybody's flexibility. We did have to change this meeting because there was a scheduling conflict with the technology, and so I put in, if we need to shift those, we try to give as much notice as possible. But those are the dates that we are planning our additional meetings, and of course, to agenda items. There have been times in the past where we haven't really had any new business, and we haven't felt the need to meet. But we're on a good path forward. We seem to have regular updates, which I'm delighted by, and so I really hope to have these meetings. So let's keep a save on our calendars.
Okay. Does that mean we are at the end, Rich?
Yes, although I did want to point out, I haven't heard yet. I think I flubbed and I send you an email for some dates for our onboarding session, and I'm not sure where that landed, but I know that if it hasn't been announced, it is imminent. I promise you that. But there are 2 dates coming up for the boards that are quasi-governmental. Ours is a quasi-governmental because when we have public hearings, we're in a different category and we have different regulations. So this is not a public hearing. This is one of our regular business meetings. Hearings. So it's a little more stringent, if you will, in terms of procedures. So we do have onboarding, and that's especially helpful, I know, to our new members. And let me just look at my calendar here, because I swear I may have seen that just today. So while I have you, if you'll bear with me just another minute. Yeah, it's not final yet. It is proposed. So just expect it in the next week or two. You'll be getting an invitation to the relevant meeting. And they will be much briefer than last year. Last year we had an in-person, and it was very, very thorough. But they're leaving a lot of that up to the individual boards to get up to speed, and they're doing a very condensed version. So when you get that appointment, that information will come directly from the clerk's office, and I will follow up just to make sure everybody received it. So it's coming very, very shortly. I can promise you that.
Are you going to follow up with those of us who are interested in attending the conference?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just didn't know if there was something I missed, or if.
No, I did put in an application for the scholarships because they were offering them. And I need to talk to you about that, Karen, as well, because I think you registered yourself. But I did put in all 3 members that had expressed interest. And with that comes certain expectations. So I will be emailing you what those expectations are. I think it's a minimum of 3 classes that you have to attend, and you have to document it with a summary or something, because make sure that people aren't just signing up and not going. So I will email that to those of you that expressed that interest. And that deadline is still open to register, but the scholarship deadline is passed, and I don't know if we got them or not. We'll find out.
Okay.
I will be in touch with the 3 of you.
Okay, well, if that is the end of business for the evening, then I say we have adjourned as of 7:50 p.m. Thank you all for being here, or there,
Thank you.
the case may be. I look forward to seeing all of you in person sometime, maybe April.
Thank you.
July.
We don't have the mallet, so you're going to just have to slam your desk, Mary, just to make it official.
I'll tap my water glass.
It's so good seeing all of you. Thank you for joining us tonight.
It was a pleasure to meet you all. I look forward to working with you.
Looking forward to it.
Me too.
Nice meeting you
Bye.
guys.
All right, Rich. Thank you.
Good job, Mary. You did it.
I wait for my first public meeting. That'll be harder.
You did a great job.
Thank you.
All right.
Everybody have a good night.